All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started. Happy Friday. Before we dive into Nora's wonderful presentation that she has put together, we're excited about, I want to just kind of open up the floor to get any reflections on last night. The African-American cohort, right, was able to give a beautiful presentation last night, and we are the last cohort to present, right? So I just wanted it to open up in terms of, out of all the presentations that we've been able to watch, just like some highlights, right, or some things that really stuck out with each presentation. And then I wanted to really just devote the majority of the time into diving into that PowerPoint presentation, and then just assigning roles and ensuring that we are ready for this presentation, right? We only have 2 weeks to put it together, and then we'll go from there. Does that sound good to everyone? Awesome. Okay. So I just want to open up the floor to anyone to get just some overall feedback in terms of the presentation from last night and then our presentations.
Well, I was impressed by I was impressed by the scope of their issues and how they presented it. I was and also I thought it was really innovative that they had the use of voice, but that it was like sort of masked and anonymous. I thought that was kind of cute and powerful. So it did get me. That's why I stayed up and I tried to put something together, because I'm concerned. I want to make sure that we represent. so yeah, I was glad I was there, and it was also interesting how they had Will Jawando speaking, and and that made me think, should we invite Natalie and Gabe, since they're Latino? How does that work? So
I don't think that's going to be I don't think there's going to be an issue doing that, Nora. So yesterday we did reach out to Council President Evan Glass, because Councilmember Jawando reached out to Selena about the possibility of doing closing remarks. And of course, CP Glass said that, that'll be great if he could do that, and also to extend the invitation to Councilmember Lori Ansels as well. So I think we can certainly do, the same for your presentation with both Councilmember Albornoz and Fanny Gonzalez.
Awesome. Ruben, do you want to give any comments or thoughts or feedback?
Yeah, I have to apologize because I have to watch like that video, because yesterday was like a crazy day for me. So I could not attend. Normally I attend to every single of these cohorts. I remember that the ones that, they were like really, really good, like about the Jewish community was like really impactful for me on like the amount of information that they gave. And I think that I praise you, Nora, for like start to put in like this presentation together, because I think that the first few slides, they are like really good on showing that, hey, what's the Hispanic and Latino community, and what is like the umbrella that it covers, right? Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And yeah, I think the presentation last night was great. I'm with Nora that I thought it was pretty cool and unique that they had the video and the voiceovers, right? I think especially for the one that Tiffany Kelly did, right? And I also like their approach of, the media, using media to bring attention to this specific meeting, right? And I think there may be some possibilities of, since we are the last cohort to go before putting together the overall package for presentation for the council, there may be some opportunities there as well. So, and kudos to all the cohorts, right, for just putting together the presentations. I know that this is such a short time period for us to really put together something, but I think that everyone did an excellent job given the time frame. And I hope that this is, or I know that this is going to be one of just several conversations moving forward in addressing anti-hate in Montgomery County. So with that being said, I want to just move us to the next agenda item, which is really just diving deep into the PowerPoint presentation that Nora has started for us. Nora, do you want to share your screen and then just go slide by slide, and then we'll go from there?
Yeah, just give me 1 second to queue it up.
Sure, no problem.
Right. Okay. Oh, host, can you let me share my screen, please? Thank you.
And then while she's doing that, Juan, do you just want to say hi, present yourself? I apologize for not giving you the opportunity.
I know Juan. Oh, maybe Ruben doesn't.
Yeah, so I'm Juan Arango. I work with Councilmember Kate Stewart, and I used to work for Identities. That's how I know that. But yeah, I believe I know everyone here. At least I've met them once before.
I love that you're wearing the law school hat. So
Thank you, thank you.
I expect you to go to law school now. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Oh, you don't need to see my MSDE invoice. Okay. Slideshow. Okay, I'm going to put it in slideshow so you can see all the animation effects, and let me know if you can't see something. Okay. So it is the 16th, right? That we're presenting. Okay. Just want to make sure. And then, you know, I think I misspelled Vanessa's name wrong. I think it's only one S. Is that right, Bertha? Only one S?
I can check.
Yeah, so I think she's only one S. I think I noticed that in her email today. But one of the questions I had, it's just one. Okay. And one of the questions I had is, do we want to put our organizational logos? I think it would be cool because we're kind of a small cohort but mighty, and this like makes us look mighty, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think that works for me. And then Nora, my last name is B-A-Z. Two Z's. Yeah, no, I'm like
B-A-Z.
Z. Yes. But
Okay.
thank you, I appreciate it.
Yo te lo compro. Con razón, I have such a hard time finding your email because I'm always misspelling it. Okay. See, hey, I never said this is perfect. Okay, so then I think it's kind of important to define terms, just because I think in the presentations I've done for different county people, the usage of Latin American, Hispanic, Latinx, it's you know, if people don't understand what those terms mean, where did they come from, what's the politics behind them. And I don't know if we want to use the term Latinx or Latino, Latina, because it's supposed to be the Latina cohort. But I just put in something there, but that's a decision I think that we have to make. And Berta, I don't know if there's something that, okay, but I do think we need to make a decision of what's the terminology we'll use throughout, right? But just to explain that there's these other terms. So anybody vote for Hispanic, Latino, Latina? Don't all of you start talking at once. It's deafening.
I think that this is like a really, really good question, Nora, that you are like raising up, because especially for me, you know, because like when people ask me, it's like, okay, are you Latino? And I was like, okay, should I reply no? Are you Hispanic? Yes. Are you white? Or yes. So and actually it's like this is like a conundrum for all of us, right? Many of us, I would say that we are not like really well defined. All of us, we are
Mhm.
under the umbrella of all these terms, right? That they do not apply to us like on a specific way, right? Or they apply to us in a specific way, but we are like under the umbrella. So
Yeah, so
and
that's
actually, sorry.
that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I don't know if there's consensus between us, but we should have some consensus if we're gonna be presenting together. So what do you vote for, Ruben?
I like mismatch. I think that we should try to find like a term that everybody will feel included. And
Okay.
I was thinking, like when you send the presentation, I was thinking, okay, what is the term that we should use? So I think that we need to put like some thinking on this.
Okay.
What do
Alex?
you think? What it was like? What are your opinion, guys, on this?
Yeah, I mean, this is actually, I'm glad that Nora, you got the wheels turning, excuse me, on this, because I've been presenting ourselves, right, as a Latino/Hispanic cohort. But I think that the more inclusive language would be the Latinx/Latin one. I think that that's just like the one that's been, I guess, the most updated terminology in terms of like the most inclusive. So those are just my thoughts. If I'm gonna vote, I'm gonna vote for Latinx/Latin.
And Juan and Berta, do you guys want to give an opinion? Because I feel like you're the future. So I'm old. ¿Qué piensan ustedes? Alex, tú también, y tú también, por supuesto, Rubén, eres joven. Yo me siento anciana.
Oh, no, Nora, no, por favor.
Not at all. Not at all. I'm all for the most inclusive out of, all the terms. I think for me as an immigrant, right, and immigrating into this country when I was 13 years old, and having to learn and being put in the category of, having to define myself with race and terminology and all of that. I mean, I get it. It's a very it's complicated because there's the colonial aspect of it as well. But I mean, I agree about the Latinx term, and I also know that comes with a lot of more discussion too and dialogue because of who really came up with that, and it doesn't even exist, in our Spanish language too. Latinx, like how do you say it? So again, but I understand the the inclusivity of that term and being inclusive of the LGBTQ plus community. So I mean, it's really not up to me to vote. It's up to you, the cohort, but thank you for asking.
I think you guys are young people and you're part of the people we are representing. So I think you should have a vote. Juan?
Yeah, I know it's controversial in the Latino community, and there's always a debate against it. From my experience, the youth rather identify themselves as Latinx, right? But the older population as Latino or Latina, from my experience. And even with like, it depends too, right? Because if a lot of the like newcomers and stuff don't see it like that, they are very Latino, Latina as well, and very strong, feel really strongly about it. So it's I don't know. I'm not the best person to ask. I personally identify myself as Latino, but I do understand that Latinx is more inclusive. So I would allow. I mean, I would suggest using Latinx for this purpose.
So, one of the things I want us, Ruben and Alex, specifically to think about is I want us to think about who's going to present which slide. And this conversation that we just had, I think it's an important one to kind of reflect on in the presentation, right? So when I've done this, I talk about how different people, just like what you were saying, Ruben, different people connect with a different term, but that we all are trying to define a community. And that one of the things that's hard, right, is that there's so many different terms. I like Latinx because I read Paola Ramos' book called Finding Latinx, that if as Latinx people you have not read, I really recommend you reading it because she makes the case. So she's Jorge Ramos's daughter. And she makes the argument for using Latinx because she says part of the Latinx experience is exactly what Ruben was saying. En donde quepo. No soy de allá, no soy de aquí. I don't like a part of the Latinx experience is actually grappling with no quepo en ningún lugar, right? And so she feels like Latinx is a very inclusive. So my vote is for Latinx, but I just wanted to put it out there. And I also think that if Vanessa or Daniel are pro another term, I think that it's okay to be transparent about that. And I think actually it frees people to understand the complexity of who we are and not putting us all in one box, which I think is really super important, right? So and maybe you guys need to think about, and again, I was just putting things on a piece of paper. I am not saying, I did claim a couple of slides as privilege, but that's it. Okay. I think also as a follow-up to the conversation, right, is explaining that Latin America is the people that are considered by the UN to be Latin Americans is anyone born in the Western Hemisphere that is not the US or Canada. So I think a lot of people would be surprised to see Jamaica on this list, right? Or to see Aruba on this list and say, Arubans, not really Latin American or whatever. The ones that are in white are the ones where Spanish is spoken, right? But the actual term of who is Latin American, the definition is really anyone born in the Western Hemisphere that is not part of the United States or Canada. Okay, I think this goes to how difficult it is for people to categorize us, right? Because we're, and I think people need to understand that, because if I get called Spanish, I don't mean anything by it, Ruben, but if I get called Spanish one more time, me voy a sacar las canas, right? Okay. I also wanted to make sure that people understood why Latinos are in the DMV. And I feel like a lot of times people point to our countries and say, because in their home countries, they couldn't take care of their business, they're coming here to drain our resources. When that actually is not the case of immigration. Right. And so I found this really cute timeline thing. And it starts here in the 1940s, right, about the labor shortage and how there was a bracero movement. And the bracero movement was really the impetus for a lot of huge waves of immigration in the country. And then we get into the 60s and the 70s, and we're like dealing with the Cold War and like a lot of coups that are US backed coups in Latin American countries like Chile, like Nicaragua, right? And so like
48.
right. And you're like, oh, okay, well, perhaps we have some responsibility, right? Because in Latin America and Chile, right, they'd elected a socialist president democratically, but the United States and the business interests were really upset by that. And so a coup ensued, which caused a lot of unrest in the 70s in Chile and caused millions of people to flee. And it was the dirty war, and it was the time of Pinochet, right? And then of course you have the Cuban Missile Crisis in the 60s and all that. But then in the 1990s, right, you have TPS, you have earthquakes, you have hurricanes that lead people to getting temporary protected status. And that is really fueling, right? Fueling even more people from the Northern Triangle, right? And of course, the 1980s, right? With all of the wars in Central America that were, again, US backed, right? And so the Civil War breaks out in El Salvador, Nicaragua, Honduras, and Guatemala during the 80s, right? And that's when we get this big group of Central Americans here and in the DMV area, because the United States designated DC as one of the relocation resettlement sites in the country for Central Americans. And so outside of Los Angeles, the DC area has the highest concentration of Salvadorans outside of El Salvador, right? So it's a big deal, right? And so anyone that's presenting the slide needs to and I put a little bit of talking points in the notes of the PowerPoint so people can guide, but really to get that sense of why people are here, and that people are here for a lot of different reasons, right? So I was a little torn. Yes, Juan.
I'm sorry. I have a meeting I have to go to, but I'll make sure I make more time next time. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but so far I think it's so amazing what you're saying. I think it's so essential to say the 48 coups that happen in Peru also, and like all over. That's I'm really passionate about that, and I'm glad that you're bringing that stuff up. But yeah, I'm sorry I can't be here the whole time, but I'll make sure that next meeting I will. And if you guys need anything that I can help with, feel free to contact me.
Thank you, Juan.
Take care.
Hey, Juan, I may be reaching out to you for a case.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Let me know.
So I was really torn. I was going to tell you guys, I was really torn going from the timeline to this right away, because this doesn't give us context about like from the 2000s, right? Why people were coming. So things like the unaccompanied minors, Venezuela, like all of these things, even now the buses. So we could add a slide before this or after this on those issues, because we do have good graphics about that. But I just wanted to make sure to let you guys know that late last night I was like debating. Okay, this one actually comes from the census, and this is so you know how to read this. This is the census tracts, right, from 1990. And the white areas are where throughout Montgomery County we are really mixed as a population. The green, orange, white, I'm seeing, sorry, the green, orange, and blue tracts are where there are predominantly white people settled, or Black people settled, or Latinos. And here's in 1990, we only have one census tract that is predominantly Latino, okay? And then in 2000, you start seeing that it's not just the Tacoma Park, Langley Park area, it's also East Silver Spring, Wheaton, Aspen Hill, Gaithersburg, a little bit in Germantown. So we went from one tract in 1990 to 9 tracks now, right? But then by 2020, we have 33 areas in the county that are predominantly Latino, and we are kind of distributed along the 270 corridor, right? Silver Spring is still strong, Wheaton, Aspen Hill, Rockville, Gaithersburg, and Germantown, okay? So this tells us, you know, that in the county, we're having this tremendous growth. And then also kind of the explosion of population by race and origin, starting again in 1990 and going to 2020. ¿Preguntas? Okay. Okay, so one of the things that I think is clear that we need to make is that here on the left is the demographics of the county, right? And here on the right are the demographics of the school system. And so even though in the countywide, we only make up 20.3% of the population, in the school system, we make up the majority, 34.6%, right? And the fact of the matter is that incoming kindergarten class for 2022, 34% of that kindergarten class was Latino. So what is the biggest population, the fastest growing population in Montgomery County, the youngest population in Montgomery County? It's the Latino population. So if we are going to be a thriving Montgomery County, then we need to plan for the future consumers, the future students, the future homeowners, the future business owners, who all are going to be Latino heritage, Latino background, right? So, so this information can help us plan better for services support, so that then the kids who are in the school system graduate college and career ready and don't become a burden on Montgomery County, but are actually contributing. And I think it's important to always, because so much of the stigma and stereotype against Latinos has been that we drain resources, that we're just poor, that we have nothing to contribute. I think it is important throughout the presentation to combat that, right? And to say, actually, a strong Latino population will guarantee us being a strong Montgomery County. Because a lot of people don't see that connection, but it's true. Because if most of your population ends up failing, as a county, you're gonna fail, right? Because my house, the worth of my house is dependent on how well the schools are and how good the county services are. People want to live in Montgomery County because they know they have good schools and they have good services. And if any of those things changes, the value of my property goes down. And that is something that all people need to know and like really assume, you know, really assimilate. Okay, I'm gonna stop there for a minute. Now, one of the things that I was considering is maybe putting in a slide about the economic power of Latinos right after this one, because again, combating that hatred and vitriol that we're only here to like drain resources. So I didn't put it in because I couldn't find the information because it was a little late. But I wonder about that, if the county has some kind of figures on how many of the business owners in Montgomery County are Latino, or how much money do Latinos generate. So that's, I know that those studies are somewhere. I just don't know where.
I'll reach out to staff here who are in charge of those portfolios and find out.
Okay.
So I owe you that.
But I do think that that would be a good slide, right, to put in, just like our purchasing power, our tax power, you know, I think is important. Okay. So I didn't finish the slide. Again, you could tell when I was hitting 1 o'clock, because like it starts becoming bullets. But I wanted to say that so what I was getting after here is the definition from the information you gave us, Bertha, of what a hate crime is. So putting that definition in here, and then say, but the precursor to hate crime starts with attitudes. I guess it's bias attitudes and acts of bias. And so this the Anti-Defamation League has a framework called the Pyramid of Hate. And the Pyramid of Hate starts with biased attitudes, acts of bias, discrimination, bias-motivated violence, and then genocide. And we see that biased attitudes includes stereotyping, insensitive remarks, fear of differences, microaggressions, right? Non-inclusive language, justifying biases by seeking out like-minded people, right? And then the second level of violence or hate is actually acts of violence, which include bullying, ridicule, name calling, slurs, right? And then you have discrimination. What's the economic discrimination, political discrimination, and then you have the what we call hate crimes, right? Murder, rape, assault, you know, and then genocide, the act of intentionally and deliberately trying to annihilate a group of people, right? And thankfully, we're not here, right? But we live kind of here, right? Like we see biased attitudes, you know, if we're Latino and we've ever worked in non-Latino spaces, we have experienced this, right? In our schools, our kids are experiencing a lot of acts of bias. And then in discrimination, we can talk about it. So one of the things I was thinking we could do, if you agree, is that we could talk about bullying in schools of Latinos and incident reports of bullying in schools, or we can bring up something like that as like in one slide, no me on the slides, but in one slide, like bullying. We could also talk about how Latinos and whites, the difference in income, you know, how I don't remember the figure, but I think it's like 70 cents on the dollar is the difference of what a Latino gets paid versus a white person gets paid. But we could come up with that, and then we can come up with we could come up about how you know, we have experienced over time political discrimination, right? So I'm just putting that out there as a potential next slide. It's not here yet, but it could be. Okay. Yeah, ahora no quiero moverse. Okay. So one of the things that intrigued me about the Black Cohort's presentation yesterday was talking about colorism and how anti-Blackness really impacts their daily experiences. And the Pew Research Center in DC actually has some research about how US Latinos feel, right? About whether or not the darker they are, impacts how they're treated, right? And I thought it was nice. It's a nice like visual. It has a nice little chart. And it also goes to that thing of like, we come in a lot of different hues. Some Latinos are blanquitos like Ruben, and otros son más morenos como yo, y sucesivamente. And there's Afro Latinos, and and I think just bringing this up in a very quick kind of way is important, right? And I thought maybe whatever survey results we have from what Vanessa and Danny have done, we could insert here, because it goes with nuestras voces, and our voices. And then I thought, okay, it's important to also talk about the future, right? So this is another Pew research study about how people act, whether people felt people acted as if you were not smart. Lighter skinned people said 34, darker skinned people 42 said experienced at least one discrimination incident. The darker skinned people, Latinos, 64% of them have experienced a discrimination incident, right? Experienced discrimination by someone who is Hispanic, criticized for speaking Spanish, told to go back to your country, feared for personal safety, called offensive names, been unfairly stopped by police. I felt like that was something that, because we have underreporting in this county, we were not able to capture with county data, but we can see this in a report around national statistics. And Berta, ¿qué piensas?
Yeah, so I was actually going to add, today I was working on something, well, I guess related, but unrelated to your meeting, and I flagged it because I thought there was going to be a lot of really good information from this report. So this is data very specific to the county. It's an updated racial equity profile that it was first, I think in 2018 might have been the first one, and now the whoever firm did the update recently shared it with everyone, I guess, April 2023. And I can go through this report, and it includes business and economic data that you had just mentioned, Nora, too. So again, I mean, it's a very long thing, but I can just pick out data points specific to the Latino community. And again, it's an equity profile for the county. So I'm just
that would
going
be
over it now, and there's a lot of very good information here and data points very specific to the county and Latinos. And
that's the thing that we were missing, and that we really do need to punch this up a little. So this could be just a placeholder, and we put in the stuff that's more, I just wanted to make sure that we had something to draw from, because we know it exists, and just because it's not being reported doesn't mean it's not happening, right?
Yeah.
So I also wanted to be open about how the wall and the calls to build the wall in the last presidential election really led to a lot of vitriol, right, against Latinos, and then now we're facing another presidential election with the same candidate, and that we can anticipate, and between what's going on, the different wars and around the world, the anti-immigrant sentiment is starting to grow again, right? And so how do we've experienced bias and hatred on a national level, right? I cut out a picture of, this is a NPR story that came out in 2016 about a girl at Watkins Mill High School where kids were using a racial slur, right, in the high school. As an, so you say remember your pyramid of hate. We talked about bullying and using racial slurs as a stepping stone for more violence. And I actually have a case right now of a little girl being harassed at Silver Spring International Middle School, racially harassed. So, that we're starting to see at identity in other places arise in this. We had, children who were crossing the border, being kept away from their family. I mean, when I started thinking about all the things that had happened to us, right, during Trump years, I'm like, oh my God, right? But families belong to, I'd forgotten, honestly, because at a certain point, and I think it's okay to say this too, as we present, we become so immune to all of the big and the small ways that people are biased and racist towards us that we sort of forget as a means of healing, of moving on, right? And then last but not least, here's an article about Cardin and Van Hollen saying, that the ICE raids were completely unnecessary, right? And how places that people thought were sanctuary places like schools and churches suddenly became places where Latinos couldn't even congregate anymore because Trump was calling on ICE raids, and all this happened, right? And it happened in 2016 and may happen again depending on who is elected. And so, and I was also trying to get a little like visual, like it's not as, what I'm saying? It's to remind people that we've been through this, right? And then we were going to do the recommendations. And then I was just going to get into the recommendations here. And this is from the template. So I guess it's todo. And that's as far as I got, because I'm not Superwoman and I don't. And I couldn't, that was all I could do last night. But what do you think? Thoughts?
That's amazing. If you did that just in one night, I can definitely see what you can do in a whole week. That's a lot of information. And I do have the info from the surveys we have done throughout the wellness nights at the county, 5 different schools. And literally this week, there was a hate crime done to one of our students because they were blaming her for a bomb threat. What a different student actually wrote the note and gave it to her. And then she's the one that got accused. But then after investigation, they found out that it wasn't her, but she was Latina. And of course, it went straight to call the police and everything on this Latina girl when she had never even touched a pen to write anything. So it was a clear example of what a hate crime is, and just not understanding or listening to her words or her saying. It was immediately just, you're being judged, you're a Latina, you wrote this, blah, 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 we call you parents. It was very, very serious. It happened at White Oak Middle School, actually, yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just so you know, Berta, eres muy rica. I can't get into the the New York Times article because you're probably a subscription.
Yeah, but it's through the county, actually. I think if you have a library, a Montgomery County Library card, you get it for free. The subscription is free.
Gracias por decirme, nunca sabía. So
Because I had the same thing, and then a couple of days ago, I'm like, how is that possible? So I tried again because I had read somewhere, and the message was, you're getting your free subscription because of Montgomery County Public Library. So
that's really great. Okay. If you wouldn't mind sending us these links in an email so that we have them after the meeting, that would be great. But so Danny, do you think you can get us that information? Is it published anywhere or?
The issue is that everything was done through a cloud. It's a system. It's like it's kind of like paychecks kind of thing, but for service. You do a survey and then it takes all your information, you input it in, and then transfer it to a database, so you can get a pie chart or things like that. The person that takes care of this website or this actual app for us and Impact is on vacation for like 3 weeks. So they haven't come back yet. So they're literally coming back on Tuesday. So as soon as Wednesday, I'll be able to, send this information
Yeah,
to Bertha, and maybe Bertha can, add it into the slides since we'll have access to it.
yeah. And I don't know if we wanna, I can also upload the slides into my SharePoint so that we can have access or into Google Slides. So everybody is working from one deck as opposed to, and actually, Ruben, could you do that? Can you upload it because you have the Google Drive set up already?
Yep.
And so we can work on it through the Google Drive.
Yep. So you want me to upload the presentation and like, yeah, it's like Inverta, if you want like to put, a document with all these links, that will be great because then, we can take, things from out of there. So yeah, I will put it right away, right now.
And then what we can do is we can add to it and we can make suggestions. All I would say is don't delete stuff. You can hide stuff, you can move stuff around, but keep it until we have a final decision. You have that slide sorter option, right? So let's figure out how things keep flowing with the, but if we could try to finalize the presentation by the 8th of November, like just the first draft, or like even earlier by the 6th, and then meet together, review it again, decide who's going to do what, so that we could be ready to present on the 16th. That would be awesome. And everybody should have a role in the presentation. And I have to let you guys know that I am not going to be at the meeting on the 9th because we are hosting our Black and Brown Literacy Forum. But so that's another reason why I wanted to contribute, because I'm gonna be on my send me all of your Latinos, because I need them to fill up Gaithersburg High School.
When is that, Nora?
It's gonna be November 9th from 6:30 to 8:30 at Gaithersburg High School. Ahorita les mando la información. But it's on literacy, but really, you all, just to be totally candid, it's really to show the state of education for Blacks and Latinos, and how Blacks and Latinos are not meeting any of the educational milestones, and to speak about how literacy is so low in our school system, right? And one of the things that we need to consider as Latinos, right, it's like the school system is taking up 60% of the Montgomery County budget. And our Latino fourth graders, only about 30% of them know how to read on grade level. That's just not okay. That's not okay, and what's worse is Latino parents are getting report cards with an A and B on the report card for reading, and the kid is 3 grade levels below in reading. So how is a parent supposed to know that their kid needs help, right? So I think one of the things that this forum is trying to do is demonstrate that Black and Brown people are strong in this county, and that we care about our kids, and we want to make sure that our kids are not forgotten. And we will put together a bus coming from Down County, Danny. So if you want to coordinate we will pay for buses to bring people.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll get connected to some of the parents because right now, what you're saying is one of the biggest issues I have on schools right now. Like teachers, like you said, they'll send a report card, but also they'll be reporting kids saying that they're in trouble, that they're not doing their work, but they're only targeting Latinos or Black kids. And it's I have two moms that they're to the point where they actually became volunteers at school to see the teachers in action, see how they're teaching their kids, because their kids, go home and they're frustrated. They're like, "Mom, the teacher doesn't like me," or "Mom, that they're being very mean to me at school," and it's because they don't know how to read. But the teachers are not helping the kids. They just, like fake grading kind of thing. So
Right.
it is a big issue.
So anyways, I just wanted to put that in your radar too. So I'll send that to you guys as well. Ya me callo.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nora, for putting that presentation together. It's a wonderful presentation. I love the flow in it. And I also just want to mention that I like how you really uplift the skin color of our different communities, right? When we had the get together with the council members, we did have community members that identified as Afro-Latinas. And one of the things that they had mentioned was that they're often forgotten, right? That community in terms of when we talk about our community in general, but that they feel that they face twice as many obstacles and discrimination and anti-bias incidences. So the fact that we're uplifting that is definitely, for me, very crucial, right? And it really is uplifting a special population or population that's often forgotten within ours. And so I think, Nora, if you can just kind of highlight like which slides that you want to own, and then perhaps like maybe see if you have ideas of, okay. If you have ideas of which slides you think that people should own, right? We could also help you put together the policy recommendations and help you finish and finalize that as well. That would be awesome.
So there are notes in the bottom
okay, gotcha.
of the slide. So if you change the view to notes.
Got it, okay.
There are like 3 slides that I put my name on.
Okay, got it, cool. No worries. Cool. And then the last thing I will say, right, is, at the one of the charts where you're showing the census tract, right? For example, for me personally, all of CASA centers are in those heavily populated areas, right? I know Identities in Gaithersburg, Jose's in Silver Spring, right? And so I think that when we first initially asked whether we should have our organizations on there, I think yes, right? Because most of our organizations come from the creation of the flow of immigrants that are coming to this country, right? But the services that we need to continue providing, right? And the lack of resources that sometimes our organizations face as our population continues to grow in such a rapid pace. So again, it's just kind of tying it all together with the work that we're already doing. So,
and I would like to make the suggestion that beyond the Latino cohort, that maybe we should continue to work together, because we each represent different areas, and along with Vanessa. And I think one of the things that happens to us is we get very fragmented and we get stuck in our silos. And really, if we work together, we could do so much more.
Exactly, absolutely. Okay, so I'm looking at the time. It's 3 o'clock. Does anyone have any last minute questions before we move on to trying to determine when we should meet prior to our presentation? And then Bertha, I see you want to say something.
I do. Sorry, you saw my mouth open. So I'm about to send the email to everyone with sort of a very 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 recap of right now. And Ruben, if you can just respond to that one with the Google Share Drive link so everyone can have it.
Sure. I just put it like in my share folder. So I will reply once I get your email.
Perfect. And yeah, the last thing I had, Alex, was your next meeting. So I can include it here before I send it.
Yeah, so I think that we decided that we wanted to get at least this presentation finalized on the 8th, right? Is that correct? The 8th of November, which is a Wednesday. What do folks think about convening on the 10th? So 2 weeks from now on a Friday. Does that work for folks? So it'll be the Friday before our actual presentation, and by then everyone would have already looked at the final rough draft of the slides, and then we can finalize roles and stuff. Does that work?
So
Or
the 10th, it's a holiday.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's Veterans
Friday,
Day.
I don't think that's gonna work for me, guys. So maybe you can do it like at the, I don't know, a few days before, maybe we'll try on that week, or I don't know.
What about doing it on the 8th with a due date of the 7th? And Nora had suggested the 6th too. If you wanna give an additional day, could be, you know, a first draft by the 7th so that you could meet on Wednesday, the 8th.
Wednesday the 8th works for me. What time are folks thinking? I'm very flexible on Wednesdays, so.
Wednesday, I'm flexible too.
That's the day before our big forum, so I will try to be flexible. I could do morning or like 3 o'clock.
Morning works for me. So that way you have time throughout your day in order to focus on.
Okay, so I have I can do 9 or 10.
Let's do 10 o'clock.
Okay.
Ruben, does that work for you?
Yeah, that works for me. 10 o'clock on Wednesday, okay, yep,
Yeah, Wednesday, November the 8th.
sounds good. I have to jump out, okay, guys? I have another meeting.
Yeah, no
But
worries.
I will, Berta, just send, once you send the email, I will send that link, okay?
Okay,
Thanks so much, guys.
sending
Yeah,
now.
see you next week, okay?
Bye. Me too. I'm gonna jump off too, guys. See ya.
I guess.
Awesome.
Thank you, Alex, for
Thank
everything,
you,
and
thank
you,
Becca,
Nora.
you too.
Thank you.
All right, cool.
All right, you don't have quorum anymore.
Yeah, okay, I'll see you.
Okay, so I'm about to send this email again. I said very, you know, sweet, short and sweet. I work on the slides that I mentioned. I'll help with the data as well. So you'll see those changes next week.
Do you want me to reach out to Natalie and Gabe's office? I know that we mentioned that when they were last there and they made it a point. So
Yeah.
do you want me to just,
Do
Make-
it, and then I'll follow up in person with their schedulers.
okay, sounds good. Awesome.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Berta.
Bye. Bye.